What's up everyone, Darkside Phil here, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth video game review series, where I give you maximum truth, minimum bullshit about the year's latest retail releases. And today we're going to talk about a game very, very highly anticipated, very, very hyped, to the point where this is kind of like the first game of the hardcore gaming season of 2012 that I think everyone was like really, really excited to get their hands on. Unfortunately, some people still haven't because of the way that release dates work. From what I'm to understand, Europe and many other, countries outside of Europe still haven't gotten the game. In fact, today is the release day in a lot of places. And that's quite unfortunate because I know a lot of people wanted to maybe watch a full playthrough. And I actually got lots of messages from people saying, Phil, we watched 1 or 2 parts of your playthrough, great, good job, but we're not going to watch the rest until we actually get to play the game, and the game doesn't even come out for days in our country, okay? And that's really annoying, but that's probably going to continue throughout the entire hardcore gaming season, so I completely understand why people might be a little disappointed that they have to wait, because when a game gets overhyped, people just want to get their hands on it, okay? So the game we're talking about today is a sequel, direct sequel to a game that I did a full playthrough of way back when on my Darkside Phil channel, my original YouTube channel. And at that point, at no time did I ever think that I was going to branch off and try to make my YouTube hobby into occupation or anything like that. And so I played the game, but actually I hadn't originally been planning on playing it because I knew that the game was centered mainly around co-op, and I didn't have people who could dedicate 20 hours to playing this game with me. And so I ended up playing the game. At first I wasn't going to play it at all, and then my fans kept asking me to play it, and I did play Borderlands 1 by myself as the soldier class. And even though I beat the game, it took me about 25 hours, and I did do a lot of side content, and I did do a lot of different things with the game, I don't think I got the full experience of the game, simply because this kind of game, Borderlands, Dead Island, for example, these games are meant to be experienced with co-op. So I just want to say that up front, that when I played Borderlands 2, I did a full 3-player co-op. We couldn't find a 4th person to join us, unfortunately, and adjust their schedule appropriately so that we could beat the game this week. So, a full 3-player co-op with myself, John Rambo, and the Aerie Lord, and I really feel that's where the game shines. I'll get into this as I review the game, and we'll get to that. But anyway, Borderlands 2, okay? I think the actual back of the game is a perfect description of the game. It's a shoot and loot. You used to have games like Diablo where it was just a point, click, and loot. Now it's shoot and loot, meaning they're doing the same kind of gameplay inside of a first-person shooter game. And this game really does optimize a lot of the things from Borderlands 1 and improves upon a lot of things, and we're going to talk about that in the review, okay? So, the plot of Borderlands 2, and yes, I just said it, the plot of Borderlands 2, okay? That's one of the major changes and improvements from Borderlands 1 to Borderlands 2, and it was actually the main point of my Borderlands 1 review. There really was no cohesive plot in Borderlands 1. It was just, oh, go open the vault. Then when you finally got to the vault, you were like, what the fuck? And the game just ended with no real ending, to which you're left scratching your balls, and you're like, I just put 25 hours into this game, no real narrative, no real story, no explanation of anything that's really going on, and now there's no ending. And so you're like, okay, I enjoyed the ride, the gameplay, but it really would have been nice if there was a story to cohesively pull it all together. Well, Gearbox really did listen to the fans, because a lot of the things that they've improved and changed in Borderlands 2 directly follow some of the major gripes with Borderlands 1. Point taken, or case point right now, the story. The story is basically about 4 new vault hunters. Yes, once again, 4 people trying to open the vault, okay? And in this case, it's a completely different twist than the original game. The original game was you were seeking fame and fortune, and you thought that the vault was going to have all these riches or whatever inside, maybe unlimited power, and that's why you wanted to open it. In this game, you're actually trying to prevent someone named Handsome Jack from opening the vault. He is the dictator of Pandora, and he's like hell-bent to be able to create the key, the vault key, and be able to open that vault, and basically he thinks he's going to get unlimited power when he does that, okay? So U-Star is a fully new cast of 4 vault hunters, okay? You've got the Assassin class, which is very similar to Mordecai's class from the original Borderlands. You've got Maya, who's the Siren. That's very similar to the Siren class. I'm not sure if it was called Siren class, but I know it was Lilith who had played that in the original Borderlands. I don't know this guy's name because we never played with him, but he's the Gunzerker, who's similar to the Berserker. And then you've got this guy whose name also eludes me right now, but he is the Commando, who is very similar to the Soldier class. And one thing that is, minor spoiler, but anyone who plays this game is gonna know it, and most people probably already know this already, so minor spoiler, skip 10 seconds ahead if you don't want to know this. The original cast of Borderlands 2 are in the game in prominent story roles. You meet up with them relatively quickly, and they have a very important part to do with the development of the story. So that's a pretty neat kind of thing to see characters, and it's not just that. There's characters returning, a lot of characters returning from the original Borderlands game. You're like, oh, I remember that person, oh, I remember them, and then they all have some kind of an implementation into this game. In fact, there's even some locales, such as Firestone, the first town that you went to in Borderlands 1, is actually one of the last towns that you visit in Borderlands 2, and a lot has changed since the last time you were there. So, a lot of fan service, a lot of cool continuation of things from Borderlands 1, and the fact that there is this ongoing narrative story arc is very fun and interesting. And unlike Borderlands 1, where at the end of the game just kind of ends with no real definitive ending, this game has a definitive ending. It actually has the potential to now lead into a series of sequels that will make sense when they're created. So, good job, Gearbox. If anything, you've definitely improved the story of the game, and I felt that was a great addition to the game, okay? So what about the gameplay? Outside of gameplay tweaks that I felt were needed, Borderlands 2 is pretty much very similar to the original game. You're going to pick your class, and that's going to determine the way that you play the game, but not necessarily the entire game, because these classes are unique, interesting, and even amongst the classes themselves, depending on how you level up your character over the course of the game, they become dramatically different characters. So for perfect example, I actually play as Maya, the Siren, okay? Now this class has different uses. You can use this class as an offensive class, or you can use this class as a defensive healing class, okay? I opted to go for the healer. And so what I actually did is started picking abilities where when Maya uses this thing she calls phase shifting, which basically isolates an enemy on the screen, it lifts them above and levitates them for a certain period of time, so that basically they're isolated from the fight and they're vulnerable for everyone to shoot them. She gets different buffs and status changes. So perfect example here would be, I chose all the healing things. So I lift a guy, he's phase shifted, everyone's shooting him, immediately we're getting damage bonuses, we're shooting more quickly while we shoot at this enemy. If the enemy dies, we all get health. Health flies out of the enemy and we absorb the health of this enemy, okay? Also later on I was able to get bonuses for example, my team would regenerate health over time. If I shot my teammates, they would gain health back, and this became significant pretty much mid-game when unfortunately we weren't really able to heal ourselves fast enough for a lot of the stuff we were coming up against. I would be able to shoot my team and they would get their health back. So, completely different than some of the other options that would have been for the Siren. For example, there's one where instead of doing all that healing stuff, it would have been damage bonuses and such. So if that were the case, I would have probably been the heaviest damage dealer on my team. I would have found the most difficult enemy on the field, lifted it up, and tried to do as much damage as possible while it was up there and try to kill it off quickly, because I know that we have no healing coming, basically. So you can really customize your characters to the way that you really want to play. And obviously the Gunzerker is going to be more like a tank, a Berserker character from the first game. The Soldier's the more versatile all-around guy who throws down a turret that distracts enemies' attention so that you can go and do other stuff. The Assassin is what John Rambo played as, and that's a neat class because you can actually create a clone of yourself that distracts the enemies, and you go behind them invisibly with a cloak and then backstab them for massive damage. And of course, you know, it's variety, and it's completely customizable, and it's fun, okay? The core gameplay is going to be exactly what you expect. You run around shooting things, and as you shoot them, you gain experience points. They drop items. The items could be weapons, it could be armor, it could be buffs, different things to your character, okay? As the course of the game unlocks, you can carry up to 4 weapons at a time. There are several different classes of weapons, including handguns, assault rifles, SMGs, rocket launchers, sniper rifles, and each one of these could be played by any class, and really, again, the stat bonuses that you choose as you level up will accentuate what guns you're using. There's certain, stat boosts, for example, for the assassin, where he could be an excellent sniper, but John Rambo opted not to do that and to go for a more melee-style gameplay. As you progress through the story of Borderlands 2, you also will have the ability to customize the appearance of your character through different skins that you'll unlock, whether that means that the face is a different style, the color and the stylings of your body are a different style. You'll find these over the course of the game, and that's really neat too. We were able to constantly change the look of our characters, and I really enjoyed doing that. It definitely lent to the variety of the game. You're going to have a main quest line that's going to take you all around the planet of Pandora, all these different locales. Eventually you will have a main hub city that kind of you'll use as your base of operations, and then you'll branch out into different areas. There is going to be vehicle gameplay. A lot of people were wondering if that would return from Borderlands 1. It does, but it's not necessarily as prominent as it was in that game. Yes, you can use vehicles in this game to get around if you want, but you don't have to. There's very few missions that require you to use the vehicles, okay? And so a lot of the times you may just want to explore on foot because you actually, number one, gain bonus experience. When you do that, when you kill the enemies, you actually get less experience when you're in the vehicle. But number two, a lot of people did say that the controls of the vehicles in Borderlands 1 were a little bit annoying. They do still kind of act a little bit annoying in this game. They're very similar to, say, the Warthog controls from Halo. It's not the best driving controls ever, but it's doable. It's not anything that's like, oh, I've completely hindered my gaming experience because these controls don't work. So, not exactly user-friendly, but still it's not horrible. You will branch out into all new areas doing things for the main story, and also as you do this you will find people who you can talk to and unlock a ridiculous amount of side missions, okay? And I actually have the strategy guide here, and I don't think it ever lists exactly how many there are definitively, but just to give you an idea, they list from A to Z every single side mission and a full explanation of how it works, and just in this strategy guide, it's about 100 freaking pages of side missions, and each page has about 2 side missions on it. So you're talking probably about 150 to 200 side missions over the course of the game. And they're going to range dramatically. Some of them will be really difficult, where you have to go inside of a base, kill a whole bunch of minions, get to a boss at the end and kill the boss. Some will simply be just go to this certain area and collect 5 of these items that are hidden throughout this area, while of course you're getting attacked by mobs of enemies and such. They're going to be very different side missions. And then, in addition to that, similar to, again, I like to draw a parallel to Diablo, because I really feel this game is Diablo with first-person shooter mechanics, because it has the same kind of experience, the skill trees, that kind of deal, looting system, etc. But you're going to find rarer enemies. When you find a rarer enemy, it might be called a badass, whatever the name of the enemy is. And this is a tougher version of that enemy that serves like a mini-boss, and everyone really needs to team up and work together to kill. A lot of the times in this game, splitting up will get you killed, because the game, even though it's meant to be co-op, the more people that are in your game, the harder the enemies are, the more enemies there are, but as kind of a risk-reward, there's actually better loot that you get when you have more enemies in the game as well. And so you're going to find these mini-bosses. There's actually some unique monsters in the game that we ran into over the course of the game. For example, there was a guy called the Rack Man, who was kind of supposed to be like a parody of Batman. He had these flying beasts that he had trained, and they were like protecting him. We ran into this girl called Lainey White, and she was like a parody of Snow White, and she had 7 little dwarf midgets that were fighting for her. We actually found this gigantic beast called King Mong, which is a parody, obviously, of King Kong, and he was very similar, a giant ape-like beast. So you're going to find these kind of enemies in the game that are going to be unique, and they're going to drop really cool loot. So a lot of variety to the gameplay of the game as well. Even though you might say, what do you mean variety? It's just shooting things. Yes, but you're not always going to be doing the same kind of mission. Yes, you'll be shooting during the mission, but your goals will be different. There's just so much to the game that it's hard for me to think in my mind, gee, did I remember to talk about everything? And that's kind of what I'm a little bit worried about, that I might leave something out. But really what we're talking about here is an in-depth game, a game that lends itself, first of all, it's addictive as hell, and it lends itself to replayability. Our playthrough of Borderlands 2, our 3-player co-op playthrough, lasted about 19 hours. And keep in mind, we did not do all of the side content. In fact, we kind of lucked out because it took us 4 days to beat it. Launch day, and then 3 more days. We finally beat it today, Friday afternoon. and being able to beat it in 4 days, we were like, wow, okay, that was good, because right after today, our schedules weren't coinciding anymore, and we would have had to figure some weird shit out in order to finish the game. But the bottom line is we actually did skip a lot of the optional side content, and literally probably left about half the missions of the game unfinished. And if you've done every single mission, I could see it being hit or miss, and here's why. It's great when a game has a shit ton of side content, absolutely. But the way that the missions work in this game is that they're actually scaled to certain levels. And so you may have a mission that's a fun mission, like go kill this unique guy, and it's a level 8 mission. Well, maybe you forgot about it, and then when you want to do it when you're level 10 or 11, the game even tells you that mission's insignificant. You shouldn't even bother with it because you're not going to get very good loot or experience. If you get loot, it's going to be lower level loot that you don't need anymore, and it's just not very good. And therefore, you may find yourself motivated that as soon as you get side missions to do them, and that's great. But there's a problem with that too. If you do all the side missions, and we actually found this out a couple times, you end up severely over-leveled. So now you might do 10, 15 side missions, everything you find, okay, back to the story, wait a minute, I'm level 15 and the story's only at level 10, so now you find yourself completely blowing through the story with no challenge. So there really is kind of a double-edged sword here. You can do a lot of really fun side content, but then it may detract from the story, or you could stay level so the story's challenging, but then you're not doing all of the side content. And that's really where the game comes in with the true Vault Hunter mode. And if you don't know what that is, after you beat the game once, the game basically has a New Game Plus mode where the game becomes very challenging. All the enemies level up, there's more side content, everything's more difficult, there's actually, I believe, special achievements for this mode, and it basically is the mode that you would want to play once you beat the game again. And if you haven't done all the side content, okay, now's the time to go and do it, because you didn't do it in the first playthrough. Now you can do it, and obviously it'll add to your experience level when you're doing it, and you'll find better loot when you're doing it. So massive replayability. We only played 19 hours and did maybe, I'm going to guess we probably did maybe a quarter of the side missions in the game, maybe a third. I could definitely see a full playthrough of Borderlands 2 if you do all the side content on your first playthrough, reaching anywhere 30 plus hours, okay? And keep in mind, that's just side missions. I'm not even talking about, there are some rare monsters that you may want to fight, because there's 1 or 2 of them that give you achievements when you kill them. They drop really rare loot. That's another couple hours of gameplay tacked on there. So you're talking anywhere from 30 to 32 hours for your first playthrough if you decide to do all the side content. And then if you're still hooked, you're probably going to want to go back and you're going to want to play it again. So you're talking massive replayability, massive amount of content, interesting story. I do want to mention a couple other things. The graphics, really well done. I actually feel the graphics of Borderlands 2 are very, very well done. I think they shined. They were better than Borderlands 1 in my opinion. And this is the kind of game that you kind of want to look around and experience all the visuals of everything that's going on, just because of the cool visual style of the game. That being said, I do want to say I did experience some severe frame rate drops while playing on the Xbox 360, and also I did get some jitters and stutters, meaning I'd be fighting, I'd still hear audio, but the game would lock up for a second, and then it would unlock. And that basically means that they're pushing the graphical capabilities of the Xbox 360, which is great, but it kind of sucks that they couldn't get it to basically optimize, and there were some times during heavy firefights when this kind of stuff happened. I do want to mention the elemental properties of the guns. Really enjoyed them in this game. I feel that they're a little bit better than they were in the last game. In the last game you have like electricity, which breaks through shields. You had corrosive damage, which breaks through tougher enemies who have like stronger armor. You've got fire, which does damage over time. So you've got all these capabilities, and there are 1 or 2 new ones as well. I think one of them is called Slag, which is supposed to be like some kind of poison, basically. And I do feel that these elemental capabilities add to the game. It is a little bit unfortunate though, because it almost seems impossible in Borderlands and Borderlands 2 to stick with one type of weapon for the whole game, because you're constantly finding new weapons, and chances are you won't keep the same weapon for more than a couple hours. But also, chances are that you won't actually find a weapon that's the same elemental capability of what you've been using. So you're going to be having a variety of things going on, which is a detriment if you're a kind of person that just wants to stick with one game plan, but is actually an asset if you're the kind of person that likes variety. So I could see that going both ways, and people liking it and disliking it for different reasons. There's also permanent upgrades in the game. There's this thing called Iridium, which is a very rare element that you find during boss fights and such. And once you collect Iridium, you go to the black market to level yourself up in different ways, which means you can have maybe maximum ammo capacity increases. Maybe you can carry more inventory items. That's the kind of stuff that you're going to buy at the black market. So there's so much content to the game. It's going to be hard for me, even in a 20 to 25 minute review, to mention everything about the game. The major detriments about the game that I really have to complain about, number one, there are going to just be people who say the game is too repetitive. I openly admit there's not a lot of variety to what's going on. Now, that being said, that's because you may be playing the game a certain way. If you replay the game and you pick a different class and you level your character up in a different way, you may play the game completely differently. I can tell you right now, my playthrough of Borderlands 1 when I was a soldier and my playthrough of Borderlands 2 as a siren were completely different experiences, okay? Insanely different experiences. And I enjoyed both of these playthroughs. I could definitely see if I wasn't running to play another retail game next week, which I will be, by the way. It's going to be a very busy week. I might do a second full playthrough of this game as a different class and try to experience things differently. I could definitely see myself doing that. But some people just might say it's just shooting, it's repetitive, and you know what? In case in point, a lot of people said Diablo was boring. It's just clicking and picking up loot. So there's going to be people who don't openly like this kind of game. That's fine, but they may see it as a negative. The other thing I did say, there's some graphical problems with frame rate and lockups of the game. At one point my Xbox did lock up during a big firefight in the game and I had to restart my console. That was really annoying. There seemed to be a couple odd bugs in regards to missions. For example, at the end of the game, the very end of the game, before you enter the final mission, you're supposed to walk around the main hub city and talk to all the main characters of the game that you've dealt with, and they're all supposed to give you items. I've read this in the strategy guide. They're supposed to give you items as a reward and possibly open up a last vein of side quests. Well, we stopped playing on one day before the final mission, and then when I resumed the next day, the game basically had skipped that part and assumed that we had gone to the final mission, which we hadn't yet. So it seems like there may be some checkpoint issues with the game where it may not save properly your checkpoints in between missions, and that would be kind of annoying, especially in that case we missed out on some loot. And there were a couple game bugs and things going on. There was a time or two when all of a sudden I just fell through the floor and died. I don't know what the hell happened, but the good thing is there are enough checkpoints and enough respawn points that you're never really taken back so far that it's a hassle to have to get back to where you were. However, it is annoying if you repeatedly die to something and you're losing a lot of money. What I do want to say is, I think the game is balanced perfectly, and let me explain what I mean by that. Never did I ever feel in this game that it was pushing me in one direction so strongly that I couldn't play the game the way that I felt flowed naturally. So as we were playing the game at the beginning of the game, we did a lot of side content, and then we decided to go back to the main story for a couple missions, and then we decided to do more side content, and then we went back to the main story, pretty much at our own leisure. It wasn't like, fuck, there's no way we can do that main story mission because it's 5 levels above where we are right now, and we need to grind out side missions for the next 4 hours in order to do it. There was only one instance where that even came close to happening, and we actually didn't mind having to go do a couple side missions. But I could definitely see the game could have been unbalanced in that regard, but it was not. It was actually well balanced and being able to flow back and forth doing whatever you want to do and not being forced to do side content instead of story or story instead of side content, okay? So, basically what I would like to say is I really enjoyed Borderlands 2 as a co-op playthrough. I think that I really experienced the game in a better vein. It's so much more fun to go through an open world like this with your friends and to bullshit and to joke, but also to run around and help each other with loot and be healing each other than just trying to go through it by yourself. The game is playable by yourself, but I don't think it would be as good of an experience. In fact, what I'm going to do, and I do this sometimes with the Hateful Truth, I'm going to give you my opinion as how I feel the game probably would be as co-op and then as a single person playing it, okay? I really feel the game does an excellent job with the co-op. The classes are redone in a way that they all complement each other, that you can work well as a team. I like the fact that there's so much customization. I like the fact that you can play the game completely different ways. I love the new Game Plus mode. I love the amount of side content. Again, you could get up to 30 hours of gameplay in just one playthrough, and then of course you might get hooked and want to do it again. The added story really is a direct response to what the fans disliked about the first game. I loved the added story. I love the graphical improvements. I really like this damn game. I think they did a really good job, to the point where I think I will actually be trying out all the DLC content that they release later this year and later next year. With Borderlands 1, I enjoyed my playthrough, but I said, I really don't feel like going back. With this game, I do, okay? So, as a co-op experience, I'm going to rate Borderlands 2 a 9 out of 10. That's right, a 9.0. So far, in my opinion, I enjoyed Borderlands 2 more than any other game this year, and I feel it actually is, so far, the best game that I've played this year. I know a lot of people are now saying, what the fuck, we didn't expect that, but it is that good of a game. And the amount of content is outstanding, the replayability. It's just really well done, and it's much better than the first game. If you remember when I reviewed Borderlands 1, I said, man, some of this game feels like such a grind. You see the guy on the cover, he's got a hand to his head like that. You feel like blowing your fucking brains out because you're so bored because it's so repetitive and such a grind. This game, I never really felt like that, okay? I don't know why this guy wants to blow his head off again. I guess he's fucking emo-suicidal, but I was just really enjoying every moment of the game. I never felt like I was tired or it was a grind. It was free-flowing and entertaining as hell, and I loved it, okay? So I give it, as a co-op game, a 9.0. On the flip side of that, I could definitely see people saying it's not as good if you play it by yourself. I would probably say, now keep in mind I didn't play it solo, but I could probably see from my experiences the first Borderlands, I'd probably give it an 8.0 as a solo game. Because again, there is an amazing amount of content, but when you're missing that camaraderie, that complementary nature of the different classes, you may not enjoy the game as much. It's probably going to be an 8.0 as a solo. But overall, experience as it's supposed to be experienced. Gearbox did a great job, 9 out of 10. So far, my favorite game this year, and a hell of a way to kick off the hardcore gaming season, because I've been saying this all year in 2012. It's been a slow-ass year for games. A lot of games have been disappointing. Borderlands 2 did what a lot of other games did not succeed, and that they delivered on the hype. This is a great game. It's a must-buy if you like this type of game, and especially if you have co-op buddies to play it with. You gotta try out Borderlands 2, my favorite game of the year so far. Okay. So that was the Hateful Truth for Borderlands 2. I hope you found it informative and that there was maximum truth and minimum bullshit. I tried not to overhype, but I was very honest. With Borderlands 1, I was a lot more critical. With this game, I really felt it was a better game, and definitely in comparison to the other games this year, one of the best, if not the best. Now, because that game was so good, I'm really looking forward to a lot of the other AAA titles that are coming out this year. I'm really thinking the final quarter of this year is going to be a huge jump in quality from what we've been playing earlier in 2012. So, thanks a lot for tuning in to the Hateful Truth video game review series. As always, I'm Darkside Phil. I hope you found this informative and you now have an opinion on whether or not you'd like to check out Borderlands 2. And I will see you next time for the Hateful Truth. Peace.